Welcome to the Georgia Show. Thanks for joining us today. I've got BKP with me today. You know, BKP, we like to bring in to CDM when we see other, we're working with John B. Wells and other people that I see that really have insight. And I know you spend a lot of time in the morning going through a lot of the news and really you got your finger on the pulse. People don't realize how much you know, actually. So thanks for joining me today. I appreciate it.
All right. So listen, let's do this. I got to throw that out. I appreciate those kind words, but I don't want people to get the wrong impression. I can't follow a movie line. Okay. So, my wife wants to know how I keep up with everything else, but I always have to pause and ask her what's happening during the movie. So thank you for those kind words.
No worries. So that's the truth. We're waiting for Bill Quinn to come back. Q, if you're watching, get well soon and we'll keep Bill in our prayers and hope he recovers as speedy as possible. We've got a full show today. David Cross is coming on. He just told me he doesn't have a lot of time, but we want to get some convention fallout feedback as to what's going on with possibly challenging the convention. He'll come on soon. BKP and I will talk about a lot of the issues in Georgia and some more international issues. And then we've got Brent Beecham coming on. He's a big real estate developer up in North Atlanta and former fighter pilot for the U.S. Air Force and the Israeli Air Force, the only guy I know that flew for both Air Forces. And so we're going to get his take on what's happening in the Middle East and also what's happening in Georgia with the real estate market. So looking forward to that. And Brian has a lot of stuff he wants to get out. I want to say we're brought to you by the Georgia Record, georgiarecord.com. Please check out the paper, and we're adding more writers all the time. It's going to become the premier paper in Georgia. It's just a lot of work, but we'll get there. And please sign up for our no ad subscriptions. You get access to all the content across all of CDM, all 13 sites and growing. $10 a month or $100 a year, and you get access to all the content with no pop-up ads on your phone. People love it. I get comments on this show and on the Skiff show that we're doing daily, and people that saying, I love just reading through the sites and getting all the news with nothing popping up in my face. So please support us that way. Brian, what do you want to talk about today?
Well, we have a whole list of things, and when David comes on, I know he said his time is limited, and I want to get out of the way, hear what he has to say whenever he's available. I went to Todd. I want to start out with saying, I went to a No Kings rally. Yeah. You're supposed to say, really? You did?
Yeah,
what was it like?
I was just picturing you in like a Burger King hat or something walking around.
We're going to try this one more time, Todd. I went to a No Kings rally.
What did you see, Brian?
Well, actually, it was Saturday before last, and it was in Dalton, and it was called the Republican Party State Convention.
I see. Gotcha.
I was working on that line. I was working on that line for a long time. Yeah, seriously, there is still, although it's over a week old, there's a lot that we're still discussing as far as the convention, as far as the convention and the lack of being able to participate. And, I had lunch with a couple yesterday. It was their first convention. They'd never been to a state convention before. And the lady looks at me and she said, I've never been to a convention before. I was so excited. I know a lie when I hear it, and I just don't feel like I went to participate, and I don't feel like I got a chance. And what you're hearing, Todd, is a lot of people talk about the microphones, and a lot of people talk about the microphones, and the GRA say the Georgia Republican Assembly, led by Nathaniel Darnell and Alex Johnson. And Alex Johnson is really leading as far as the voice of the GRA here in Georgia. They say that it was not a GRA orchestrated move. It just seems to be all the people involved are GRA members. That's supposed to just be it's supposed to be a coincidence. All right.
It was a GOP convention with GRA characteristics. How about that?
Right. So anyhow, they say they didn't, but let me say this. Okay. The people in the audience, the delegates wearing those badges that say delegates that paid their money, people say, well, not all of them. They didn't want to go to the microphone. No, they feel they didn't get to participate because there was even a lot of Josh McCoon supporters in the room that wanted to use a paper ballot. And there's Josh McCoon supporters in the room that don't feel it was right that the rules were not open for discussion and the ability to get a chance to use the paper ballots. So someone said to me, well, I said to someone, I said, maybe Josh won the election. Maybe he did. But here's the problem is I have to say maybe. There's no valid way to confirm it. And everything we've done since 2020 is to build voter confidence. So
let me stop you right there because David's here. I want to bring him in because he's
give him his time.
Mr. Cross, thanks for joining us today.
Hey, gentlemen, how are you?
We are happy to be in the fight today. That's what we are. So tell us what you're challenging, and we've had a conversation about this on the phone. But tell us what you're doing to try to get some relief as to what happened.
Okay, so I've appealed to the Georgia GOP. And the reason why I'm laughing is that the appeals committee will be fully stocked by Josh McCoon, and I challenged him to in my letter to allow me to pick half the members of the appeals committee. That's never going to happen. All right, it doesn't serve his interest. So I've also sent a similar letter to the RNC asking for an appeal, and I think they do have a process for how to handle that. And from what I understand, I believe it is moving forward right now. We're getting a couple details every now and then about that happening. And then in addition to that, I've sent similar evidence up to Susie Wiles at the White House, up to her deputy assistant, and I've also sent notification to President Trump as well too. So anybody who could possibly weigh in on this thing will hopefully do it here fairly shortly.
BKP, you got any questions on that?
Well, let me ask you this, David, and you and I have spoke about this in depth. But as far as the people that are contacting you, my thing is the delegates, all right, and just in well, I want to talk about this a little more later, Todd. The two-party system. Remember, the Democrats, they didn't get a convention, they didn't get a primary, they did. Their convention was all a joke, and here we are on the state level. I mean, that's where we're at with these primaries and conventions right now. They're all set up. Participation, delegates pay money and participation. How much have you heard, David, from people that are contacting you that they don't feel they were able to participate? They didn't feel they got their money's worth, whatever. What are you hearing?
Yeah, so I'm glad you asked that. So, and for any of the detractors that are out there saying David's just a sore loser, because God knows I'm getting plenty of that. Here's the facts. I sent out an email survey to as many people as I could. I think we sent it out to like 5,000 people. I asked them only to return it, if you were if you were a delegate and you attended. And so I'm sorting the list like that. So far, we've got 232 people that have responded. So that's more than 10% of the people who went to, who were at the convention. More than 10% have responded. Here's the crazy thing. The mind-blowing number about this is 83% of respondents have said that, in their opinion, the convention was not fair or it was rigged. Those words, all right? It's an enormous number of people. And, now we're at the point right now where, Brant Frost and, Debbie Dooley and other folks have come out and basically admitted that they controlled everything. And in this convention, you had Brant Frost controlling the microphones, with his surrogates. He had control of which microphones were turned off and on and when. And the guy who was running the convention lives across the street from his parents, and they've known each other for, I think, something like 30 years. So that's kind of like saying, hey, we're going to play a baseball game together, and you're going to bring your best players against my best players, but I'm going to cork the bats, and I'm going to have pine tar, on the baseballs, and I get to, and the umpire is a close personal friend. So good luck winning that game.
So, David, does Brant Frost have a position in the Georgia GOP?
No, not an official position. No.
So, how is he controlling the microphones at the Georgia GOP convention?
So his job was to go in and basically, he had his team got in there early, and they literally stood in front of the microphones and controlled it. So
excuse me, Mr. Cross. The only reason I'm interrupting you there, it wasn't his team. He brags the McCoon team.
yes.
He does. I mean, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but when you say his team, he actually publicly brags and calls themselves the McCoon team.
Correct.
Sorry.
And so what happens is what people don't know is that Robert's Rules of Order exist to make it so that large conventions and groups can have civil conversations. They won't be there all day. It keeps the agenda on track, but most importantly, it gives a voice to every single delegate in the room. And on that day, there were people that were waiting at the microphones that that they didn't understand that if they had a point of order, that is a privileged motion. That is a privileged action. That means that you get to go to the microphone immediately. You don't have to wait in line behind these jackasses that are hijacking, the convention, which is exactly what happened. And they were blocked and stopped from being able to, bring their points of order. And then on top of that, the bought and paid for convention chairman was up there pretending not to hear people, at the microphone. So this thing was completely rigged. It was like 2020 with Trump all over again.
Wow.
But
any response from anyone, David? Sorry, BKP.
Have what now?
Have you gotten any response from anyone on that kind of insight into the convention? Any team Trump, anybody, GOP?
No. So nobody from the president, has reached out, from Team Trump. What I can tell you is that there are people that surround the president who totally wanted to have, Josh McCoon reinstalled, like a toilet. And it doesn't serve their interest. And so the president, God bless our president. God bless President Trump. He's kicking ass, around the globe. He's doing fantastic things. He doesn't have time to be, bothered with something like this. But I did send him the letter, as a last ditch effort to make sure that the leader of the free world is aware that an election was rigged again in Georgia.
Yeah, go ahead, Brian.
Well, what I was going to say is everything Mr. Cross brought up as far as what was taking place, the delegates out in the room, they were witnessing it. And I know of two delegates that got up and walked out after the second election, the chairman and then the first vice chair. And after they heard the way Katie Frost, the chair of the nominating committee, attacked David Cross before nominating Josh, these delegates got up and walked out. And I said, "Where are you going?" And they said, "Really, we can see what's happening here. We're not going to get to play a part." So that was all over the room. And believe it or not, they don't want to come forward. Some don't want to come forward. But there's several people that did vote for Josh McCoon that are actually upset with what happened.
And that's a great point, Todd, because in the survey responses that I got back, I had people that I know voted for Josh McCoon, and they ranked the convention 1 star out of 5, and one in particular that's a county chairman said, "My side cheated." Use those exact words, and that's not uncommon. And I think I've got, like, at this point right now, like 55 pages, of people that have responded to this along with their comments, and I'll be publishing that very shortly.
Yeah, please send that to us. Is there any other I guess measures you can take, David, to try to get some justice here?
The other measure that I've taken is I did put out a press release to Atlanta, to Atlanta press, and none of the mainstream press, surprise, was interested. Nobody responded. So the next thing obviously is alternative press and reaching out to folks like you. But honestly, my week has been kind of monopolized, by putting this information together and making the appeal. Because if you don't do this quickly, then you're not heard, and the impression that people get is that you weren't serious, and that you didn't move quickly enough because you just didn't think it was a big deal. And this was a big deal.
Too.
Yeah, this was a big deal. This is not about me. And for anybody out there that thinks that this is about me and about me getting the position as chairman, it's not. You could call me janitor. I don't care. I don't care.
Did we lose David?
I lost his audio, so I don't know what happened to his audio.
I think we lost you, David.
Lost his audio there, Todd.
Yeah.
We can't hear you. We can't hear you.
All right, we'll have to drop him out. We lost you, David. We can't hear you. So hold on. He's checking his. You there?
Yeah.
Yeah. We're going to have to. That's it. Try to come back in, David, if you can hear me. All right, we're going to take a break and see if David can come back. We'll be right back.
This is a special report.
Knowing how to invest your money is harder than ever before. Dealing with stock market volatility, record debt, and terrorist attacks requires new thinking. At U.S. Asset Management, we can help you see the world more clearly so that you can move beyond the chaos and invest with confidence. Call us, visit us online, or drop by our office. U.S. Asset Management, helping you make better decisions with your money.
So we are in the factory in Kentucky. This is Alp World HQ, and we are at the end of the packing line. So I'm going to show you how it works. We have the card, throw it in there. There's a packing slip, and then you have the Alp. And 4, but that seems honestly like a lot. 3 now, but it's good. You just pack a punch that, for a normal nicotine brand, it'd be like 8. We think 3 is fine. Next one. Again, 4. Let's throw 3 in just to keep it fair. Okay? There you go. So you can see you can get fast at this. And really, it's just a matter of repetition. This is kind of the assembly line that, Henry Ford devised so long ago.
Tucker's stealing all the Alp.
Okay, we got Mr. Cross back. Go ahead there, David. Finish what you
All right,
were
so
saying.
I think where you guys lost me was, I want to make it clear that this appeal is not about me and about me getting some kind of position, as chairman. You could call me janitor. It doesn't matter. I wanted to be a voice for the grassroots. And for anybody who's out there that doesn't understand the difference between grassroots and establishment, it's very simply this. Grassroots people, some are rich, some are poor, some have been involved in the party for a long time, some are brand new to the party. What they care about most is their country. They care about saving our country and preserving our way of life. The establishment people are people that are involved in politics because what they value is title and position and power. And that's not what I'm about. What I'm about is about honoring President Trump, honoring this country, doing what's right for our country, and doing everything we possibly can to save our republic.
Well said, my friend. Anything else?
That's it for me, guys.
All right. Thank you for coming on, David. We'll have you back. By the way, we're not having a Wednesday night show until Bill gets back, but maybe next Sunday we can have you back on, see if there's been any updates.
Awesome. Love to do it. Thank you.
Take care. All right. So, Brian, let me just say for our audience, if you're looking for a good aggregator site, go to whatfinger.com, and check out them. They post a lot of CDM content, but they also have a lot of other content, and I love the way they aggregate it and make and lay it out on their website. So that's whatfinger.com. Back to you, Brian. I know you had some stuff you wanted to get out.
Well, just to wrap up what he said, my concern are the delegates and the system. The Republican Party, and this goes for the Democrat Party, they own ballot access. So if you sit here today and say, well, I'm leaving and I'm never going back, there's the continued battle that they own the ballot access. And that is something that I would love to see taken on and something changed in this country immediately, where these two parties don't hold such control over ballot access. Now, if you were able to get a candidate on the ballot, that would change things enormously. But they know they hold that everything. And I want to say everything because there's some other things I want to get to in Georgia that are taking place that I think your viewers want to know about. Yeah. But everything about this convention was set up. Everything from the chairman to the, Josh McCoon putting the chairman in place, the committees. When you go through the committees, they were all put up. There's the old saying, it's good to be the king, and those that hold the gold make the rules. So I get that to a point, but every committee from the rules committee nominating, every committee was set up and structured. Every single thing from start to finish on rules were structured. Everybody was set up. When you say Brant Frost, everybody had a part to play. And Todd, there's a lot of people that are on social media. They're asking for their money back, and that has been said. Now, there was someone out there, we won't mention them. I just want to say to your viewers, this is not legal advice. I'm not giving legal advice because I've been attacked for this already. You have every right to decide when you purchase something, whether it be tangible or a service, to call your credit card company and say how you feel. You're not going to jail. Those people that are trying to scare you that it would be fraud and it would be credit card fraud, that's not true. They'll make a determination. So I'm not advising people to do it, but I do want to let your viewers know, don't fall for these people that are telling you it's a felony, you're going to jail. If you were a delegate, because I want to read you something, okay? The GRA, Todd, they're in a panic. They're in a panic. They're bouncing off the wall. Alex Johnson came out immediately and said, wow, this is the greatest convention ever. We got so much. I mean, he just wrote this glowing review of the convention, and that blew up to the point that Alex Johnson had to put out a new email. So let me just read this one part, okay? It wasn't a genius. It wasn't a genius or useful tactic to help someone get elected. It was simply an insult to the delegates and a restriction on their ability to participate fully. This is an acknowledgement from Alex Johnson.
That's Johnson, the attorney for GRA.
He's the national chair or whatever you call it, of the Republican. But he said their ability to participate fully in the convention that they paid for, and it alienated people who had never been to a contested convention. That line alone says, we understand you may not have got what you paid for. So folks out there, again, not legal advice, but if you're questioning whether, it costs $300 for a couple.
Plus travel and hotel.
Plus travel, right? So I want to do that. Now, Sally Grubb stepped into a nice one this week, Todd. A real nice one. She's the newly installed. I'm calling them the installed right now. I'm not calling them the elected. Josh may be the auto pen, but they're the newly installed. Okay, first vice chair of the Georgia Republican Party went on a media outlet Monday morning and said she didn't see a woman at the top of the Republican ticket that could win. That's not a quote, but we've all heard it. That could win governor or Senate. And man, it didn't take long for the Democrats. Keisha Lance Bottoms to jump all over that in the AJC that she said a woman. But here's the interesting thing. My understanding from several out there that have contacted me, it really upset this lady, Reagan Box, that says she's going to qualify to run for Senate. It really upset her. And then we don't know, Todd. We don't know, but MTG, and I don't know if you're aware of this, at the convention, gave a very state issue speech to where everybody's looking at each other saying, is she running for governor? So we don't know that, but there's been several articles this week how she, stoked, put some flames out there that she might be testing for. Right. So the bottom line is Sally goes Monday and said, basically a woman can't be governor in Georgia or senator right now on the Republican side. So that was a nice little one that came out. Ballot access. I want to mark today as June 15th, 2:26 p.m. 2025. Watch what happens on ballot access, because I do think there's going to be Republicans are going to work to take over the state legislature, to take over ballot access because of this right here. Number one, the Raffensperger resolution. All right. I want your audience to be clear. That's a resolution. And I doubt it would stand up in court. So if Brad Raffensperger, whether you're, there's a lot of people out there on social media saying, well, now the Republican Party finally moved forward and Raffensperger can't run as a Republican. Just caution yourself on that. This has got nothing to do with supporting Raffensperger. I want to be clear. But if Raffensperger decides to run, the Secretary of State of Georgia, Brad, decides to run for Senate or governor, I'm pretty sure he will be able to run as a Republican. I know that's going around. Now, up in Catoosa County, this is interesting because you got to keep an eye on this in the future. Up in Catoosa County, they put an accountability rule in. Catoosa County, Georgia, folks, put an accountability rule in saying they were going to stop what they call Rhino's establishment from being on the county ballot. Now, they cannot, a county Republican Party cannot enter into a state representative, Senate, or a federal, because that crosses different districts. So one county can't say, well, this person can't run for state representative because they might touch into 3 counties. Mm-hmm. But Catoosa County, as far as their commissioners and their people on their county, they were going to put a stop to them being on their ballot in the county. And they lost their first battle. And then the Georgia Supreme Court said, no, I don't think you have standing, and we're not going to hear this. So this past week, I think it's the federal court District 7. All right. I think federal court District 7, the 3 panel of judges that they appealed to said, yeah, you have a right, your First Amendment right. You have a right as a party to take it to court and to be heard. So that's going to have some legs and it's going to move forward. Now, what that will do is that will enact the state lawmakers to take ballot access away from the parties. I see that coming down the line in Georgia. Trust me, the lawmakers, the rumor has already been, if you push that we can't get on the ballot, we'll take that access away from you. And what makes McCoon so nervous, Todd, is the money side. Yeah. Because all of your state reps and all your state senators, and your constitutional offices, they have to line up down at the Capitol and write that check to the Georgia GOP for ballot access. Yeah. So that's a lot of money. If you go back,
legal? I mean, I don't know Georgia law, but they could just change the election law and have senators pick. I mean, or Congress or legislators pick who's on the ballot. How would that work?
They have already floated that they would take the Republican ballot access, like, away from the party, and that they would give the state legislature would give ballot access as far as the Republican caucus. So I'm not for sure. Now, I'm not an attorney. I don't know how this would wash out, but I do know the discussion is happening under the Gold Dome. The Gold Dome.
I thought you were going to say they're going to give it to the Georgia GOP Inc.
Oh, you got one. I gotta give you. You were holding one. You were waiting for that. Yes, the Georgia GOP Inc. So I will say this: that's going to be interesting, and that is coming up. I also want to say this: July. We're headed into July, folks. Every single day, I study what's going on the political side. Things will break open politically in July, so keep your eyes open in Georgia, because Burt Jones is rumored right after the 4th of July. There's a lot of discussion, Todd, that he's working with Trump to come down and do a kickoff with him for governor. So that's out there, been discussed. We have about 4 candidates in the lieutenant governor. I think we have 2 in the attorney general. Now, here's what's interesting. No one has officially come out and said, I'm running for Secretary of State in Georgia. All right. No one has officially come out and said, I'm running for Secretary of State. So what I want to let your audience know, it's going to be a lot across the state, where when Burt goes to run and he announces, and you have Chris Carr. And I want to give you something there on that's going to be interesting to you. When Burt goes to run, and then that opens the floodgates, and you go see, we already have Kennedy, and we've got Blake Tillery. Now, Greg Dolezal is rumored to come out and put his name in the hat for lieutenant governor. But there's a couple issues with that we'll get into in the future. I don't want to go into them right now, but the timing's not unless
I got some slides or text sent to me on that, so I know what you're talking about.
Right.
We'll bring that out. I want to take a quick break, BKP, and we'll come right back. Okay. And
okay.
Brent Beecham. We'll be right back.
Watching my friends gain more and more weight, and then eventually, I got to tell you, this is a little dark, but bad diet literally killed my whole crew.
Wow.
Diabetes, a stroke, I mean, all kinds of stuff. It's like, you had a stroke? You're not even 50 years old. You guys got to quit eating this stuff. Your body knows what's what. You're not conscious of this. But that's why people will go to the refrigerator and they'll grab this and that and the other and put together this outrageously elaborate combination of foods. Your body's trying to reach balance. Unbeknownst to us, our bodies are always trying to reach homeostasis. You can't eat all of this stuff and expect to live a long time. And one thing led to another, and I went, forget this. We're going to make our own product. So we partnered with one of the world's top 3 biochemists where nutrition-specific study is concerned. I said, all I want is the best nutritional and immune support product in the world. So we mixed it in yogurt. It's a powder. I got a bag of it here. I keep one on the console all the time, just so I can show people.
Yeah.
And it's a powder. Now, this is not candy. This is hardcore nutrition. And sugar is an enemy. And most people do not know that the reason these bellies are showing up on people all over the place, your body makes fat to store the toxins it can't get rid of. So it just puts them over here. But I can tell you this, you take this for 30 days and then lay off of it for 2 or 3 days, and you'll go, good grief, give me some more. Skin, nails, hair growing back. Cut yourself and it heals in half the time.
Well, in the case of hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin, these are 2 medications that have been FDA approved for use in humans for decades. They are very, very inexpensive. Interestingly, available over the counter in almost every other country other than the US and Canada. You can just walk into a pharmacy and buy them like we buy Tylenol in much of the world because they're that safe. And we've known for decades that ivermectin has very strong antiviral properties. It has anti-inflammatory properties, and both ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine are what we call zinc ionophores. They help to move zinc from the bloodstream into the cell, which is where it needs to be in order to fight off a virus. So lots of application for these, and we have every reason to believe that those drugs also will likely have some efficacy against H5N1 or a number of other respiratory viruses that we may meet down the road.
Thanks for joining us today. I just want to give a shout out to Nucleo Boost. We use it here. It's how we keep our stamina going. Go to cdnutrition.com. Check out the subscription. And also check out the wellness health forged by CDM. All right, I want to ask you something, Brian. I spoke to a well-known national conservative today. I said, a few days ago, I'm not going to go.
I can't hear you, Todd. Can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can hear you.
Okay. So I was saying I spoke with a well-known National Conservative Inc. member, and I'm not going to name names, but I told the person, look, there's big-time corruption in the Georgia convention. And the reaction was like, I don't buy it. They don't want to touch this. Why is that? What's your insight there?
Okay, so I can't directly answer that. I got to expand on that.
Yeah, sure.
In my entire since the year 2000, when I arrived in Georgia, late 1999, I've never seen a candidate. Now you got to think about this. This is interesting. I've never seen a candidate, whether it be Nathan Deal for governor, Trump running for office, anyone that got as much support as Josh McCoon just did. Herschel Walker didn't get 9 members of Congress. Okay. They didn't get all the county chairs that they got, the district chairs, the people from, coming out. No one. This is the first. Now, this is a GOP chair race going into 2026. All right. And this is a GOP chair race going into 2026. And I've never seen that many people come out and surround one individual, with the exception of one person, Brian Kemp. Brian Kemp did not put out an endorsement, but instantaneously when the guy was pronounced the winner, Brian Kemp, the governor of Georgia, put out a congratulatory tweet immediately and said he couldn't wait to work with him for 2026 to keep Georgia red or something like that immediately. Now, they knew if Kemp put out an endorsement, that MAGA in that room would have shifted.
Yeah,
they know MAGA would have shifted. So to answer, people have been told to ignore it. That's my opinion. And I'm going to throw this out here. It's got a lot of Charlie Kirk. It's got a lot of Turning Point USA. It's got a lot. I don't know exactly what's happening in Georgia, but they've got about a dozen young people. I'll call it a dozen, and they're on the payroll. They're not volunteers. There's a movement here, and it's not MAGA.
They don't want MAGA.
Right.
Obviously.
No. This is the demagifying the nation in the Republican Party. So let me throw this out because I can't clearly answer that.
Yeah.
I'd have to say there's a little mystery to it. But let's say it was 1,000 to 600. Josh come up with 400 more votes, but it was 1,000 to 600. You realize David comes up with 600 votes against all odds. Now, I live in a county where if a Democrat runs for office, the Republican gets 82% of the vote and the Democrat gets 18%. With President Trump's endorsement, 9 members of Congress endorsement, every endorsement the man got, everything they did, the money they spent, Davis should have got 20%. Davis should have got 18%.
Yeah.
You follow what I'm saying? What there should have been no need there should have been no need to block a microphone. They could have voted on paper ballots 4 times. Let's try it again, just for the fun of it. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I do. Yeah.
So I mean, if you talk to this individual again, the level, and the level of corruption behind the scenes. And
well,
let me
my
throw this.
point is, I think Conservative Inc. is in on this. I mean, as you said.
Oh no, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, there's crickets on paper ballots. There's crickets on the machines. There's crickets on what's going on at the conventions and in the party down at the local level. And I see this in Florida too. So I think you're right. It's demagifying under a MAGA president.
Well, because I'm on your network, I won't mention the lady's name, but she's got like 1 million followers, and I know you know her, and she has been just relentless on election corruption and fraud and everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And she comes out yesterday and tweets out, well, the Georgia Republican Party has finally stepped up and is blocking Brad Raffensperger for running for office as a Republican. And the first thing I thought with this individual is, you're smarter than that.
Yeah.
You're smarter than that. Why did you just carry that water and brag about the Georgia Republican Party? Why did you carry that water? Do you see what I'm saying?
I do see. Yeah. And I saw that tweet too.
I think we always,
All right. I've got Brent Beecham in, and I want to bring him in because he's short on time too. And I've been taking a lot of his time lately. So Brent, welcome. Brent's a real estate developer in North Atlanta, a very successful one. Go see some of his properties in Crabapple?
Crabapple.
But you're also a former F-15 fighter pilot in the U.S. Air Force and in the Israeli Air Force, and you've been an amazing source for us and with your network throughout the Middle East on what's going on, and we've been out in front on the coverage. I put something out this morning. I think regime change may be the best way to go here. I have been vocal against and taking a lot of arrows because I don't want the Americans involved. I was straight up with you on that. But what say you? What's happening? I mean, it's by the hour here as to what's going down over there.
Yeah, I think that there's a real possibility that the Ayatollah's Khomeini and his entire government packs up and flees at some point. There is a lot of chaos. You see Tehran emptying out. People have lost faith and probably more importantly lost fear of the regime. And they've been exposed for who they are, and they've brought this upon themselves through their actions. And they could have done what President Trump had asked them to do, to negotiate a way out of this. They chose not to, and now they face the consequences. And I see it from a bunch of. I mean, they had the Iranian heir to the Shah's throne today on Fox. I've seen.
Yeah, they're pushing that very hard. Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen his sister posting as well, and I've seen some other people that are, have family still in Iran that are saying that there's, people out chanting death to the Ayatollahs and death to the regime. So I think this is, I think it's a real possibility. And, if you are an Iranian and you've believed even remotely that they've had this great capability, they're going to defeat the great Satan and the little Satan, and the first attack they have come under that scrutinizes that whole ideology that they've been talking about for the last 50 years, all of a sudden it's now been exposed as a great lie, that they really are completely vulnerable, which I think everybody knew that in their heart, but they had the appearance of being a real power in the Middle East. And the fact that they've been supplying Russia with weapons made that even more of a bigger, deal. I mean, the Russians are getting all their UAVs from them.
Let me ask you this. There's also some video of some of the families skedaddling from the airport, which I found interesting. And then a lot of the Iranians were pissed off about that. You know, they were, I don't speak Farsi, but it wasn't pleasant language that the
No.
guys taking the film of them were saying.
Right. I think that, like I said, I believe that they have seen them for who they are. And if you're sending your family abroad, what does that say about your belief in your military and your capability of defeating the Israeli Air Force and the Mossad's running around in there in the country apparently pretty freely?
Yeah. BKP, you got any questions?
Yeah, let me ask you, because you're bringing back that you know, our media wanted to lead us to believe Saddam Hussein and Iraq and Revolutionary Guard or whoever they were at that time, whatever, that they were the third strongest army in this area, and they every night they came on and showed us what would happen and how they would retaliate and what it would be like. And it ended up we went to Baghdad in less than 72 hours through Kuwait. Right. And it ended up nothing like that. So what you're saying about Iran, are you telling me we didn't know that? Not you, but I mean, I'm sitting out here thinking, wait a minute. I was looking for Iran to wipe Israel off the map in about 12 hours and start sending missiles towards, because they have no fear of the great Satan, towards our military complexes. Are you telling me we didn't know that? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, I remind you that we also believe the Soviets were this 10-foot, army. Their typical soldier was better than ours. They had more than us. And it turned out it was a paper tiger in the end. And I believe that the Iranians, again, they have the appearance, and I never thought they were a particularly great threat. But over the last few years, maybe to your point, they've been selling this idea that they've developed their own technology. But every once in a while, you see these things where they roll out a 5th generation fighter, and you can look at it and tell that it's not real. And so why, if they're that great a technology power with their military capabilities, why would they roll out a fighter that's an obvious fake? So I think there's always been a sense under the surface that they weren't who they said they were.
Well, let me ask you this. There are some hits on Tel Aviv. How are the Israelis handling this in country?
Yeah, and I think, of course, we've got friends and family all over the country and every different location where this is happening. And, they hear these explosions. But I believe this is, I think everyone understands that this is the price to pay in order to prevent this from ever coming back to threaten Israel again with a nuclear capability. And, unlike most people who don't, I mean, if this was happening in America, I think we would be, I think there'd be a lot of people protesting in the streets against our government having led us into this situation. I think everybody in Israel understands the threat, and that's one of the reasons why there's such a powerhouse in the Middle East. Is that when push comes to shove, they all get together, and politics aside, they all that goes to the side. Nobody's pointing a finger at Netanyahu at this point and saying, "Well, look what you've done to us." And now, people have gone into, and of course, Israel, as a result of the Gulf War, when Saddam shot Scuds at them. In the wake of that war, every new house had to have a security room, and those security rooms were reinforced concrete, on all sides with a hatch to get out in case, you were trapped in the room, and with a steel door on that window to protect the window. The only casualties, well, I would say majority of the casualties that have happened have been in homes that were built prior to 1991. Before that law was instituted, and the buildings that have been hit that were older is where we've seen the casualties. But I think people are behind this still, and we'll see it through the end. Yeah.
Let me ask you, switch subjects a minute. The economy and real estate and the housing market in North Atlanta. in Georgia for specific. What are you
Mhm.
seeing on the ground? Because we're getting a lot of conflicting signals. Housing is, growing in certain markets, but declining
Yeah.
in others. What are you seeing?
So Atlanta's still one of the largest markets for new construction. I think it was the 5th largest in the country. It used to be continuously the number 1 market prior to the recession back in 2008.
Mm-hmm.
But Atlanta is a strong market relative to most markets because we still have a lot of growth in the city. That said, the whole tariff thing caused a lot of people who had money in the market that were using that money to buy a home for cash. That was kind of your typical buyer who was 700,000-800,000 plus. And so they weren't worried about interest rates. The market that's below that, below about 700, is the typical buyer who's still taking a mortgage, and a mortgage at 7% at $600,000 or $700,000 that's a lot of
Not
money.
cheap. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, you have to realize that overall interest rates at 7% historically are not that high. I mean,
That's true.
it just, everybody got used to 3 or 4.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. What about supplies? Are you getting what you need to build?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting.
There's no disruption whatsoever.
Hmm.
There was disruptions back during the COVID scamdemic
I remember
where,
lumber was a big problem for you.
yeah, lumber and concrete. Concrete was something that we just couldn't get,
Mhm.
and we're not having that kind of supply problem right now. But a
Mhm.
lot of commercial constructions also kind of stopped for the same reasons: high interest rates.
Hmm.
We just happen to be continuing to go forward because we can see the other side to this, and I'm a contrarian by heart anyway.
Yeah,
And so when people, it's the same thing in your stock market. Do the opposite of what everybody else is doing.
totally agree. Brian, you got any questions?
Yeah, in the industry right now, it's like there's a little bit of a trifecta. I was talking to a couple developers in another state here recently, and they said, between the tariffs, there was some uncertainty there, but nothing too bad. But there was uncertainty there. Then they mixed it with the interest rates, and the interest rates. One developer said, "Look, Trump promised us they were going to come down immediately, and Jerome Powell is not even budging." And then, last but not least, the labor force, the possibility that some of these big projects could get hit, and the labor force. They already have projects. Some of these developers where manpower is starting to be a little bit of a problem because of concerns. Now we heard Trump say he's going to readjust. We heard the president say he's going to readjust where farmers and the hospitality industry and restaurants and things like that, as far as where ICE would be going into. And I'm not trying to take this into a discussion on immigration. I'm actually talking about developers out there. And I was kindly told yesterday that it was a little bit of a trifecta, and some things were cooling off with those concerns.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's obvious that there's some games being played by Jerome Powell. Of course, they also, if you remember, reduced interest rates right before the election to affect the election. So it could be that they prematurely decreased rates, and then by the time he got in, it's kind of like, okay, we got to let it reset. But based on inflation data, it seems like that's pretty well under control. Things like tariffs can affect like steel, but most people don't know this, but about 80% of the steel we use in the US is recycled steel. So when they tear down these buildings, they haul this stuff off to a plant, and they recycle the steel. So it's not like we're buying new steel from South Korea or China or some other place where the tariffs would have been imposed. Of course, local suppliers are going to take advantage of the scarcity. So I think you're going to see, we don't get any oil from Iran, but our prices of oil are going to go up, and gas prices are going to go up over the next few weeks just as a result of the conflict. I do believe, over the years, there's always been a supply, kind of a gray market of people who came from south of the border. And I think everybody just turned a blind eye to that, for good or for bad. You could take it, like you said, the fact that they let 10 million people in undocumented with no intent of coming here to work, but to come here and disrupt and to take things from us as Americans who, are taxpayers. That's the real problem. And the fact is they're going to sweep up people that maybe we didn't really want to see go home. But that's just the price of what happened. I mean,
Yes.
You can't open the borders up and expect that, and again, if you live in a house with somebody who's Trinidad Agua and you get swept up in that raid, sorry, you were hanging out with bad people.
So Brent, you're going to get your exemption for labor for your building process, right? Along with the ag and the hotel guy. You're next in line, right?
Probably. But the truth is, and I think if you look at what's happened over the last 6 or 8, 10 months with this, these things at Columbia, Harvard, MIT, where they're people who have been trained to be anti-American. You ask them what kind of degree they're getting from these universities, and it's, underwater basket weaving or, gender studies, which is just another name for Starbucks barista of the month. And those guys have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on a degree that will serve them nothing in their career, if they have a career.
Yeah.
And I think if Trump is smart, he's going to find fund micro works in other organizations like that, retrain Americans to become workers again. And if you look at the cost, they may be paying these laborers under the wage of an American, but you consider the total cost of that family being here, going to our schools, going to our hospitals, and Medicaid and all the other things that they've added onto that. They're probably getting $60 an hour at the real rate that we're paying for that labor. So it's not cheap labor. It's costing the employer less money. It's costing Americans a lot.
So BKP was asking me before the show. There's a lot of chatter on the web, Twitter, X, about the marching in the parade yesterday, and you and I have some experience in that marching, and I've been complaining about that back in the day from our academy days, that they just weren't as strapped as they used to be, but it did look pretty bad. But the average Army company, I don't know what they do. Do they train in a drill anymore or not? Do you know?
I don't know, but I suspect as much as they've been deployed over the last 20 years, marching's probably not real high on the list.
Yeah, they were bobbing and weaving, man. I was a little embarrassed too for them.
The only reason I brought it up, and I want to be clear, Brett. I asked Todd before we went on. The last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to be 100% supportive of the men and women in military. Yeah. And I'm supporting them all the way, but I'm going on X and I'm like seeing, and I'm going to say some of the older guys, we'll leave it there. They're like, it got a little noisy talking about the marching. So I just asked Todd, I said,
yeah, well, it is, especially at the academies. They need to know how to march, but I can see the guys out in the field, but go ahead, Brent.
Well, remember too, all the part of staying in step was hearing the drum that gave you the cadence for it. So I'm guessing in a really loud environment with a lot of people over a long period of time, that probably was a little bit less.
They needed you out there, Brent. C-130 rolling down the strip. Airborne daddy going to take a little trip.
Good news is we didn't look like the Chinese or the Soviets, marching in step perfectly. You know what? The Israeli army doesn't know how to march either. And look what they're doing. That's all I care is performance in the field. So, but the truth is, I mean, all these people came out No King Day. And a friend of mine pointed out, we already have one of those. It's called July 4th.
Yeah, I'm going to make that T-shirt. Actually, that's on the list.
But another friend of mine said, look, they're trying to make it sound like this was Trump birthday party he was throwing for himself. And nobody actually looked up the history. The United States Army was founded exactly 250 years ago. And a friend of mine pointed out, actually one of our academy classmates pointed out, for 170 years prior to Donald Trump being born, they celebrated this day, and
Yeah.
we fought a few world wars in that time as well. So, quit turning this into something. Again, it's just Trump derangement syndrome. They cannot, if his birthday was on the 13th, they still would have tied it in. It just doesn't matter.
The Constitution is very clear. He's the commander in chief. End of story. Right. Okay. That's, our Constitution, very clear, set it up for the president of the United States to be the commander in chief. So if he says march down Main Street at 3 o'clock, you say, yes, sir.
So true. Brent, thank you, man. Is there anything else you want to get out? How do people follow you? Keep in touch.
If you want. I'm on marketdistricts.com, and we still have a bunch of stuff on our project in Crabapple, Market District Crabapple, on Instagram and on Facebook and whatnot. But I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, man. Talk soon. Take care.
All right, talk to you.
Bye. Well, I just want to give a shout out to cdmmetals.com, where we have advisor metals. You can go there and fill out the form at cdmmetals.com for our audio audience, and Advisor Metals will contact you, and I promise you it's an easy conversation. They're not sales guys. I've checked their bankers. I've checked their IRA custodians. He has a regulatory background. We checked out. He's a patriot, and he's just going to talk with you. But you need to protect your portfolio, because obviously we're in some crazy times here. So make sure you got some of your assets in precious metals where you don't you can protect your life savings in your IRA or whatever. Anything else you want to get out today, BKP?
No, I appreciate the opportunity to be with you and your audience and CDM Media at any time. That gentleman there, I got to get back on with him. I just really enjoyed that. I've got a list of questions we didn't get to, because he really did a great job of explaining several things. So I appreciate getting a chance to talk with him. So just thanks for having me on and giving me this opportunity to be with your audience.
Well, tell us about your show tomorrow morning.
8 a.m. I start at 8 a.m. live on Rumble, voiceofruralamerica.com, Rumble, Twitter, Roku, Voice of Rural America. From 8 to 10, we look at the nationally, internationally. We look at everything going on politically. We have the conversation. Todd, I got the best email. I had an immigration conversation Friday. I got the best email on the show. It just says what it's about. This lady sent me this email, and I mean, she ripped me up and down, and she doesn't agree with me, and it's my position and she just lit me up. And then she closed with, I absolutely love the show. Can't wait for Monday. Have a great weekend. And I said that. Well, that's the show. Is the show is my favorite. Is I don't agree with you all the time, but we have the conversation from 8 to 10 nationally about everything going on, from politics to whatever it may be. And then at 10 o'clock, from 10 to 11, we do the Georgia Hour. We talk about the people running for office, coming out and running for office, anything and everything that has to do with Georgia, from 10 to 11 every morning. And that's on the Voice of Rural America Network. So I appreciate it. And I always appreciate your audience. They come over and watch the show, and then they always send me nice notes when I'm on with you, and I appreciate it.
Yeah. So, please check out Voice of Rural America tomorrow. And you do get a little sporty, and I appreciate you putting on your best behavior on our show, but you get a little sporty in the comments. But anyway, we'll be back.
Hey, listen, I say on my show, I say all too often, I don't know where that came from. It just boom. Sorry, folks, I don't know where that came from. So yeah, when I'm on your network, I reel it in just a little bit.
All right. Well, I think if you up for next Sunday, or do you got any plans?
Listen, I got to check the calendar. I'm going to say right off the bat, yes, I'm here. I told you as long as Bill's trying to get back into day to day, and until he's able to do the show, or anytime. So my answer, until I look at the calendar, yes, I foresee I'll be here with you.
All right, man. We'll see everybody. Actually, tomorrow, 10 o'clock Eastern, 10 to noon, is the Skiff, which is our intelligence brief on CDM. We're on Rumble, X,
That's a
Gettr,
good program.
YouTube. Thank you. And tomorrow we have Sam Shoemate, who is he was on Sean Ryan's show recently, but just a great military, I guess, investigator and analyst and geopolitical analyst. And then we've got a surprise, one of the doctors who was dealing with some issues in DOD. So it's going to be a great show. And we'll, of course, update you on all the big stories. So stay with us. Come back tomorrow at 10 on the Skiff on all our channels at cdm.press. Thank you. See you next time.